In this episode of Gel Lecture Forensics, we have an interesting case of cybercrime. One dastardly student with an aptitude for hacking decided to change their grade in their genetics class, but forgot to clean up the scene of the crime in the library. The crime was traced back to the computer that the student used, and lo and behold, there was a hair left on the keyboard. Using gel electrophoresis and VNTR, the lab was able to analyze the DNA in the hair and compare two loci to the suspects and the library security guard, who was the witness that just so happened to be asleep on the job. Here's the first locus that was electrophoresed. Let's look at the witness first. In one of the bars, the security guard witness is matching with the sample, but the second bar near the bottom is different, and therefore the security guard can be excluded from the sample. Suspect 1 is matching both bars, so they cannot be excluded from leaving the sample at the scene of the crime. Suspect 1 is also matching at one bar with the security guard witness, which will be important later. Suspect 2 is different at both bars from the sample and can be excluded from leaving the hair at the scene of the crime. Suspect 3 is also different at both bars and can therefore be excluded from the sample as well. Suspect 4, however, is matching at both bars and is consistent with the hair sample left at the scene of the crime and can therefore not be excluded at this point. Here's the second locus from the analysis. The witness is once again matching in only one bar with the hair sample and can therefore be excluded from this sample. Suspect 1 is matching at both sites with the sample again and therefore cannot be excluded from this sample. Suspect 1 is also once more matching at one bar with the security guard witness, leading to the assumption that the security guard is the parent of Suspect 1, since they are matching in one bar at both loci. There is much suspicion about Suspect 1, but let's look at the other suspects before we assume too much. Suspect 2 is different at both sites and can be excluded from the sample again. Suspect 3 is matching at both bars, but since Suspect 3 was excluded from the first locus, we can ultimately exclude Suspect 3 from leaving the hair at the scene of the crime. Suspect 4 is different at both sites and can be ultimately excluded even though they were unable to be excluded from the first locus. We now have significant evidence that supports that Suspect 1 matches the DNA sample that was left on the keyboard of the crime scene, since Suspect 1 matched the sample at both loci on the gel. Using this DNA fingerprint analysis, we have figured out that Suspect 1 was a student that changed their grade in their genetics class. Not only that, but we also figured out that the security guard happened to be the parent of Suspect 1. Through further investigating, we were able to determine that the security guard acted as an accomplice to the crime as well by making sure the security cameras in the library were off. This truly is an academic tragedy.